I love that we're both in all black.
Me
and white.
too. Fierce for the full moon.
Literally.
It's amazing. Okay, are we ready?
I think so.
Okay. Hello, Red Nail Energy listeners. I am coming at you from the studio live with a good friend of mine today. Welcome to Red Nail Energy, Emily.
So happy to be here.
And we're sitting here on the eve of the full moon, and we both showed up wearing all black, like the true witches we are, the basic witches that we are, which I just love. So I'm really excited for this episode, and I want to give you all just a little bit of information about Emily. Emily Clark is a distinguished sound healer with a unique blend of scientific knowledge and artistic expertise, holding a Bachelor's of Science and an integrative coaching certification through the International Coaching Federation. She combines evidence-based practices with the transformative power of sound to promote holistic healing and well-being. With a background in vocal performance, Emily creates deeply immersive and effective healing experiences. She has collaborated with renowned organizations such as Dr. Joe Dispenza, Math Heart Institute, and more, expanding her impact on diverse communities. Her compassionate, intuitive approach fosters a nurturing environment where clients explore and heal through sound. I'm so excited for this conversation. I have had the honor and joy of attending some of your sound bath experiences, and it really is such a transformative and powerful space that you create. So I would love to open the floor for you to kind of give our listeners an introduction on you as a person, but then also segue into how you got introduced to sound and how this has just evolved into the beautiful practice that you have today.
Okay, amazing. Well, my background, I like to say that I've always been a lifelong musician because I have. And that was always my biggest calling in life. And I remember growing up and just being like, I want to be a singer and I want to be a performer. And throughout the years, I really nurtured that. But then as I got older and, the perceptions of other people and what we're supposed to do, I ended up moving towards science and away from music. So I started out with a vocal performance degree, but then I segued into a science degree. So at the time, I didn't really understand how all of that was going to play in my life. And I graduated with my degree, and I just was not, science was not it for me. I did not want to go down that path. So then it was just a lot of play in my 20s and finding out what really called me, and it was always music. But now I'm really grateful that I have that background in science and physics, and I can blend this beautiful world of science, spirituality, and music to hold these really profound spaces for people. So while I didn't understand why all of these things were called to me and called to my heart, now I feel like,
perfect sense.
Oh, there was this beautiful golden thread weaving its way through my life. And now I feel like I'm really ready to just catapult into this field.
I think it's so common that people feel like it has to be one or the other. We hear about Eastern medicine and Western medicine. We hear about science, and then we hear about the woo-woo, the more spiritual maybe. And I think the more I learn and grow and experience, the more I really recognize there is a place for both. In fact, if you can integrate the two in all of the extremes that we experience in our lives, we actually get the most fruitful, beneficial experience because we aren't siloing ourselves and closing off to one or the other. And so I love that your experience kind of took you to two sides of the extremes, and then you were able to recognize, oh, this yummy spot in the middle is exactly why I was exposed to both ends of the spectrum.
Well, and I think now, especially in my practice, it's really because when you think about energetics, that's really where my calling comes, is energetics. Science and the thinking part of the brain, that's the very masculine part. Creativity and music is more of that feminine part. So I really feel like I was able to nurture these two sides of myself throughout my life, and I kind of swung heavy one direction and then swung heavy the other. And now it's this beautiful merging of the two where I can speak to people. I work with a lot of men, which when I first started doing this work, I was like, it's only going to be women. No, some of the most transformative spaces that I've held have been like Navy SEALs and Rangers and ex military or men in active recovery, and being able to speak to them in a way that they understand. Because people love the woo, but I find that a lot of people, when you have the science to support the spirituality, it's able to merge together everything in it, and people can find a lot deeper understanding rather than just like, this is a wooey hippie woman.
Right. Well, and I think that we often think about talk therapy as the first thing that'll come to mind traditionally when thinking of healing deeper traumas or processing or surfacing things. And I, while I'm a huge proponent for that, I also find that there are so many other modalities for healing that often allow us to reach some of those kind of dusty corners of our soul, not even just quicker, but with less resistance, because sometimes talking about things and intellectualizing them and ruminating on them is not actually the answer. And it can sometimes push us into more of that space of nervous system activation, difficulty with really getting to that deeper repair and healing. And so throughout my experience with sound, and then attaching some of the somatic breath work or different types of opportunity to connect with yourself in these ways that don't require you to like sit across from a person and just talk about all the things that are hard in your life, and instead go inward and let your own body process and surface and release things. And I love Mariah from Exhale Boise said, once you release it, it's gone. Once you let it go, it's gone. And so often I think that we want to know the why and the how and all of these other things. And so I love that you have been able to work with so many men, because I think this is a more accessible healing modality sometimes. You don't have to say it all out loud, and yet you also can surface and process and then release a lot of really big things.
Well, and what's really interesting is that research is showing that men actually don't do as well in talk therapy as women, because women process out loud. That is the way that we communicate with each other. That's why, you'll send your girlfriends 9-minute long voice memos.
Heard that.
And not speaking from experience here. But it really does. Like, that's how we can process. And with men, it's very, very different. And I want to echo what you said. Like, what I think a lot of people aren't understanding is that energy gets stored within the body. The most beautiful thing about that is we don't have to know the why. We don't have to know why we're, especially in somatic, why we're sitting on the ground sobbing and crying. We don't have to know. And that's the most beautiful thing, is we can release it. And then the nervous system, it's like, I like to compare it to wringing out, a rag or something, and you're getting in there and you're wringing all of this stuff out. And then afterward, it's just this, yeah. Like, I can't even describe it better than just
the deepest exhale.
Yes.
And I think that for me, with a lot of those alternative modalities, I feel a fear, no matter how often I do them. There's a fear that is actually a liar, because it's the thing that is telling you to keep the patterns, to not unravel that tight-knit yarn DNA helix within us that has repeated this: hold on to it, bury it down, keep it in your shoulders, keep it in your chest, keep it within your body. And I'm always surprised at how not scary it is when the things actually come up. It's so much scarier to hold on to it, and it's so much more painful and resistive. And even though every time I'm sitting crisscross and that breathwork instructor is telling us we're about ready to lay down and get into it, everything in my body is like, find a reason to get up and leave. Go home. Go do anything else in this world. And I think that that's one of the biggest reasons that a lot of people likely don't step into those spaces, is almost because of the fear of what's going to come up. And yet so frequently the actual thing that comes up is me taking this backpack off my back that I've walked around with for who knows how long, unzipping it, looking inside and being like, oh my gosh, there's nothing in there. Like, I've been so scared of myself. And really what I needed was to create a space for release, which, as you said so beautifully, is just exhaling, putting it down, not even needing to know the why. And sometimes it is a really emotional experience and it's tears. Other times it's deep belly laughter. Other times it's just this really healing meditative state where my body feels like it's levitating. I mean, there's so many different expressions of it, but it's not the confronting, scary experience that my mind tries to trick me into thinking it's going to be.
Well, and what a beautiful thing that we have that as humans, that we have this innate part of us that wants to protect us, but also we have to override that. And that's hard work. And I try to remind people after every single session, whether I'm pairing it with somatic or it's just sound, thank yourself for showing up. Because a lot of people won't do that. They won't go into facing something with courage and a new experience. But on the other side, oh my gosh, how amazing you feel afterward. And so, yeah, that's always a thing. I'm like, thank you. Thank yourself for showing up because it is work. It's work.
Yeah.
It's inner work.
Yeah.
And the inner work, no matter what you do in your life, the inner journey back to your heart is the most important journey you will ever go on. I don't care how many successful businesses you're able to build, how much money you make in your life. If you can't sit with yourself and your heart and be with you, you'll never be able to have the depth of relationship and life that you're capable of having.
Oh my gosh, retweet. I think that at the end of the day, the biggest echoing, recurring lesson that not only I constantly find myself reliving and re-experiencing, but every single person in every walk of life, it does not matter, as you said, what your status is or your clout or how much money you make or anything like that. The biggest question is, are you able to sit with yourself? Are you able to be with your thoughts? And maybe that is the thing that feels scary when entering those spaces because, gosh, I mean, just last Sunday, it's 2 hours. It is 2 hours where you are not speaking a word. You are in your own body. You are really creating space where often in any given day, there is no time for that. We do not make space. I mean, my feet hit the floor and there's a podcast going, and then I've got something, the minute I'm in the car, I've got music, or I'm listening to voice notes, or I'm sending a Marco Polo, whatever it may be. There's so much input and output and not any stillness. And so to be able to inject yourself into these situations that, one, give you the space for that stillness, but then two, offer these really cleansing, ringing out healing modalities on top of it is just phenomenal. And maybe the first time you've created space for that in months, years, ever. So I'm sure the transformations you witness, even in a short amount of time of somebody allowing that for the first time, is...
I get emotional because I hear people come up to me all the time and just thank me. And I mean, they're the ones doing the work. I just simply hold the space. That's what I'm there for. But just that people feel vulnerable enough and open enough to share some of these life-changing things that come through. That's what keeps my work going, because there's days where it's a struggle. It's a struggle to do something so outside of the box, especially in the area that we live in, where I sometimes look at myself and I'm like, what am I doing? Why am I trying to make this work? And then I hear things and I hear people just, I mean, they're crying and they're just thanking me profusely for creating a space.
Absolutely. And then being somebody that's been able to share that space and experience, I can say on the receiving end that every single time it's so apparent to me that you are doing exactly what you're meant to be doing and doing it so beautifully and so wonderfully. And even prior to us becoming friends, I experienced one where it was unbiased because we weren't friends at the time. So I came in and I was able to experience the beauty of melding voice and sound. And then on top of that, it doesn't matter how perfectly angelic your voice is and great you are at the instrumental and sound bowl side of it, there's also an energy that you bring that I think is so important, because creating a space like that and providing the openness and the receptiveness and the non-judgment and all of those things is exactly the container for people to go inward enough to create change. And allowing this time for me to reflect that to you kind of brings something that feels like it's on my heart right now to say to listeners, where if you are feeling like you are stuck or lost or unworthy, ask somebody that you trust in your life that you know loves you to reflect your worth back to you. Because I think sometimes it's really, really hard for us to access that part of ourselves. And it's one of the easiest things for the people that love us to do. And so what a gift to allow other people to reflect that and to give us the gift of a compliment and of true reflection of our truest essence and our truest nature, but also to allow ourselves to receive that is also just one of the most beautiful kind of cyclical blessings and gifts, and what I think life is about, because it's connection and then it's being seen, which is really hard sometimes and really confronting sometimes. But if you're listening and just feeling like, what's the point? Call up somebody that you know loves you and has your best interest, and then allow them to share with you what the point of you being here is, because I guarantee it will surprise you and humble you and propel you.
Absolutely. And it's very interesting that you say that, because I'm even like reflecting back on kind of how I started this journey and getting into coaching and then finding sound. And it was doing that. It was reaching out to my friends when I was like, one of those times on the floor where I'm like, what am I here for? I feel worthless. I feel like I'm not in any kind of passion work at all. Like, what is life? And I remember reaching out to several of my friends and being like, can you tell me from your perspective, like, what do you come to me to talk to about? Like, what do you see are the beautiful parts of me? And it was always, you can hold space for people. You can have hard conversations with people. And that propelled me into coaching, which then propelled me into journeying deep within myself and traveling to different countries, and then finding sound and having, honestly, it was probably moving to Nicaragua just with like no idea of what I was doing for 6 months. And that was before sound, but I felt in myself how strong and courageous I was, so that when I found sound, I was no longer afraid of what people thought of me, because I knew I could always count on myself. And I knew that I always had myself. And so then I was able to do that. So it was this very long process of getting to where I am. And it was not linear. It was not easy. And there was not one time in my life where I was like, yeah, I'm going to pick up some crystal bowls and hold spaces for people. If you told me that even 3-4 years ago, I would have, A, I wouldn't even known what it was. And B, I would have been like, you're crazy. I'm just this girl who isn't capable of anything like that. So yeah, surround yourself with people who see your worth, your value, and can reflect it back to you. Because sometimes we really do need that.
Yeah, absolutely. And building our own personal brand, and I don't mean that in any type of a even professional setting, it's knowing deeply who you are, and what that looks like on the outside could, from a marketing or a professional perspective, because everything is, it bleeds into everything else, could be considered a personal brand. But really, it's at the root of your core and your sense of self. Do you know who you are, love who you are, believe who you are? Or are you walking around like a chameleon, trying on all of the hats around you and just trying to fit in the spaces that you believe will finally make you worthy? I used an example yesterday during an interview where I'm like, I now am learning to become so confident and so fierce in who I am. The fun thing about it is I can try on new hats. I can wear new outfits. I can kind of get edgy when it comes to some of my external decisions, because my inner world is so set. And I could walk into a room where every single person has their nails painted jet black and mine could be red. and I could shake every single hand with confidence and know that it doesn't make me any less. In fact, sometimes it's a beautiful thing to stand out in that type of a situation of the sea of people that all look the same or are trying to chameleon into one another, even energetically, and to walk in and say, I'm standing so firm in who I am, and people can really feel that. And the most beautiful thing I've recognized in interactions since developing a stronger sense of self is it gives other people permission to do the same. And when they're around you, it's not, I want to be like you. It's, I want to get to know me and become more like me and figure out who that is. And I think that is another element of what this is all about, is not just connection with others, but the deepest connection with self. And what does that even look like? Who am I? What does that mean?
And that expression. And it changes all the time. And I love how playful you are with clothes as well, because I feel the same way. And I wasn't like that for years. And I grew up, I loved RuPaul. And RuPaul always says we're all born naked and the rest is drag. And I carry that with me all the time because I really believe that. I'm like, okay, no, we have a chance every single day to essentially play dress up. How am I feeling today? Today I was all black.
So was I, girl.
And
we
like
felt that full moon.
Felt it. And it's fun. And then like you're saying, you're expressing yourself in these ways, and you might stand out. You might wear a fur coat when you don't need to, but it feels fun. And I'm all about that energy. And I can't tell you how many young women, like early 20s, will be like, oh my God, you're always so dressed so cute. And I just look at them and I say, have fun with it, and play with your life and play with your expression of self, because, oh my gosh, that's where all the fun happens.
Yeah, it really is. And embodying of that energy in a sense that you don't mind turning heads when you walk in places, and not in a way of what's the tightest, most figure forming, turning heads in a way of it being about something that I'm trying to do for others. It's people looking, almost saying like, what is that person doing? You can feel the magnetism. And there's days I don't have it. There's days I'm rounded shoulders and I'm trying to be smaller, and I'm relearning and trying to re-explore and refine like what it is that makes me and find that essence. I don't think that it's something that you fully capture and then just embody forever. As you said, you get to play with it and have fun with it forever. And that's also a gift. You don't have to be just one thing. Every single day I'm reinventing who I am. But I think that for me, especially with Red Nail Energy, it's what's one thing you could do today that allows you to walk into a room without being afraid that you might turn a few heads. You might stand out and be bold enough to look people in the eyes and shake their hands and smile and be the first person to initiate conversation, or even just smile and say hello when you keep walking. I mean, it's a lost art to be able to even just have some of those small but intimate, basic forms of connection and communication throughout the day. And those days where I am like magnetic and on fire, and it seems like every single person, no matter if I'm at the grocery store or the bank or the coffee shop, people are talking to me and smiling at me, and it feels very open and flowing. And exactly as you said, it's that feminine energy. It feels so good to be able to channel that. And my personal goal right now in building this brand has been living by that code of embodying it every single day in some way. And sometimes I try the thing on and it's like kind of a flop, but I still have fun with it. And I'm like, I do feel like I'm playing dress up, but how sad that there was a day as little kids we played dress up for the last time and thought, this is it. I'll never, I'm never going to do this again. And it doesn't have to be like that.
It doesn't. And find the people in your life who love it. Like now I have girlfriends where that's what we do. We dress up in, sometimes it's vintage clothes, sometimes it's lingerie, sometimes it's like whatever we want to do to be flirty and playful and fun, but then also safe in this beautiful space with women who are just going to support you and amp you up. Like, I'm sorry, men, that you probably don't have those playful places to be. And I hope you find them in your own way. I feel like for women, it's a little bit easier because, we are so beautiful. We're these beautiful beings. And gosh, I'm so grateful to be a woman in every single essence of the word. But I think something that was really coming through when you were just speaking was, and I think again, like energy is everything. And that's why I'm so passionate about my work, because it's energy. I'm literally working with energy. And there's a distinct difference, and you can feel it from people who are embodied and they command a room. And then there are the people who, maybe aren't so embodied, but they think that they're really hot shit and they try to demand a room. And there's a very energetic difference between those two. And the demanding might get you far, but commanding with respect and grace is going to get you so much farther.
Absolutely. And most importantly, will allow you to go so much farther personally and in integrity and in alignment. Whereas I do think we've all been there in that demanding, almost desperation and trying to, it's seeping from our pores. Like, I just want acceptance. I want this boy to like me. I want to get this job. I want this thing. And sometimes you land that, you get it. It doesn't feel good though. It doesn't feel good when you're sitting in that desperation energy. And instead, it's a big theme these days, but I still say it all the time. I don't chase, I attract. Like, at the end of the day, yes, there's still aligned action that needs to happen in order to make certain things come through and allow them to come through. But I also think there's such a big difference of chasing these things down and wielding and clawing and grasping and white knuckling versus sitting back in your worth, playing dress up with your friends, and letting the rest of the world just kind of be commanded by that energy versus I'm going to go out and just like force all of these things to happen, because that never feels good no matter what the outcome. You may get the exact thing you thought you wanted, and then you're sitting there and it feels inauthentic because it is. Yeah. I want to circle back a little bit and just back up. So you bring your voice into the sound experience. What was your path like when it came to singing? Like, did you grow up singing and performing and kind of always knew you had a gift in that? Or when did you start to refine that talent that you have?
Yeah, it was always what I loved.
Okay.
Like, since I was a child, I remember singing any chance I could get. I was in multiple choirs, especially once I hit high school. It was like my life was horses and choir. Every chance I got, every single chance I got, it filled me with so much joy and so much passion, but also I could feel things so much deeper when I would sing than I could when I would talk. And, but I will say it wasn't until, like, I always had a great voice. I'm not going to say that I didn't. It's been a practiced skill that I believe everybody can sing, by the way. So if you're out there and you're like, I can't sing,
okay,
I don't believe you.
Everybody cannot sing like you.
Okay, I have practiced a lot. Okay, that's where maybe not, but when I started singing with the Bowls, that's when I started hitting notes. I mean, in a way that I've never been able to sing before. It was like I just opened up and became this channel of music. And even now, if I'm not feeling good, I'll literally just sit on the couch, and this probably sounds so crazy, and I'll just come up with something like, and just like, and it just like,
let it open up.
Oh, it just feels so good. It just feels so good.
And I will say, being on the receiving end with sound and your voice is so cool because it's almost the melding. Your voice has so much range and control in a sense that it's not all over the place where, like, it's a bad American Idol audition, but it's also the ability for you to let yourself have loss of control in the sense that it's so open. It doesn't feel like you're like sharp hitting the notes. It's like this really beautiful melodic flowing with the experience of these healing frequencies at the same time, where every single time I'm like catapulted to another planet. And it's nothing I've ever experienced, because while sound, bowls and sound healing itself is incredible, and not everybody has the ability to bring their voice into it in the way you do, because you do that, it completely sets the experience apart. Like, I think that it's something where now, if I just laid in a sound bath, I'd be like, but where's Emily's voice? Like, I don't know if I could have the same experience.
I get that all the time.
Yeah.
And
sure.
I'm like, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Sorry I've ruined regular
I'm
sound
sorry
baths
I've
for
ruined
you.
sound baths for you. And I've had people say that, like, you've ruined sound baths for me. And because I think it is, our voice is almost this vessel to the divine. And, when I'm setting a space and I'm setting intentions, I do it inside. I don't do this outside, but I'm constantly like, okay, just use me as a channel. Use me as a channel. I trust what's going to come out, and it's always beautiful somehow. But I think it gives that humanness to an experience, and it connects our humanness to the divinity that is always around us. And so I get that a lot, is that the voice, the bowls are amazing for sinking you down into the grounding. And I mean, I use 432 hertz, which is a very grounding frequency. But then the voice, like you said, it almost just like catapults you out into the ether. And so I'm very grateful that I get to be that for people, and I get to, create these experiences for people that are maybe unlike something they'll ever experience again. I feel very humbled.
Yeah.
Very humbled.
Well, and I think that the throat chakra is blocked in a lot of people, and it's something that is, that voice, finding your power, speaking your truth, unburying and uncovering maybe areas of shame of things that you are holding within that chakra. And so allowing a space where someone else's throat chakra is so open in the midst of that healing experience for me has been where it's like connecting me to my voice, connecting me to my ability to also be heard. Had you experienced sound with somebody singing, or what caused you to kind of add your voice into that and start to get curious and play with that modality?
Okay, great question. No, I hadn't. And actually, before I even got sound bowls, before I even knew what sound bowls were, this was my like deep meditation era where I would sit on my meditation cushion every single day and I would just sit. And so one day I decided, okay, I really need a little bit of help getting there today. I'm going to turn on some meditation music. Sound bowls came on. I had no idea what they were at the time. I was like, what is this? But I'm deep in my meditation, and all of a sudden I just open up my throat and I just start harmonizing and vocalizing with this track that is playing in my room. And I felt lit up from, like, when we talk about chakras, I mean root to crown. I was vibrating, I was tingling, and it was like, even now, like I'm feeling whoosh, like it was so powerful. And I just remember being like, whoa.
What just happened?
Whoa.
Yeah.
Didn't think too much about it. I was like, okay, whatever. Fast forward probably, 6 months. I'm going to get real honest with your listeners here. I was in a really deep mushroom journey, and I somehow always find my way to some kind of body of water, whether it's a bathtub or a river or whatever it is. This time I was in a bathtub. I was laying down, something about the porcelain, and I just started vocalizing again. And it felt like I was in a sound bowl. And I was like, I remember feeling this pressure release in my throat and just like shooting up out of the bathtub. And it was like, you are the instrument. And that's all I heard was like, and I was like, okay. And then this is one of those things where it was like, I just kept getting hit by the universe. Like, okay, come on, step into it. And I was like, no. And then finally I was like cooking dinner one night and I just heard this, and I was like, what the hell is that? And I like go into my living room, and I sound crazy, and I know this. I still to this day don't know what it is. Have no idea what was making that sound. But that was the moment I was like, okay, fine. Okay, fine. And Anne Lamott talks about that a lot, that like, okay, fine moment. Yep. And that was my okay, fine. Yeah. And then I got my bowls, and before I had even gotten them, my dear friend who I still do, I actually had a sound bath there last night. She has a beautiful Studio Lotus. If you're in Boise, please go check it out.
Go check it out.
Shameless plug. And she was like, I want you to host a sound bath here. And I was just like, okay. And then as the day got closer, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I just remember sitting with my bowls and talking to them like the little beings, like, like little beings, and being like, okay,
don't embarrass me. Show up for me,
we
please.
got work to do.
We can do it.
We got work to do, girls.
Yep.
And it was easy. Yeah. It was the first thing in my life that I felt that I was good at that was just easy. Every part of it was easy. The holding space, the singing, the playing. And I was just like, this is it.
Wow, that's so amazing. I'm going to get honest with our listeners too, because I have never shared this aspect or this kind of realization I had, but in the most recent kind of larger therapeutic mushroom trip that I did just on my own with my dog, I had a really, really profound experience as well. And this kind of always happens for me where there's something musical that comes in for me. And this time it was almost exactly what you said of I am the instrument, in a sense that I was in this kind of orchestra space, but all the music was actually coming from people standing there. And some of them were like plucking their own chords and it was part of their body. And I could feel music kind of like flowing through my cells and my body was vibrating. And I felt all of this music kind of coming from my being. And it was this really, really beautiful heart song. Like it was the essence of exactly who I am in a melody. And then I looked out into the orchestra and it was all of these people in my life who have been or are very important to me. And some of them are people that were very important to me at some time, but now are a very kind of painful thing to look back on, or people from my past in ways that I didn't have a lot of closure with. And the analogy that was given to me in this experience was I started walking towards each of these people. And some of them are like my dearest best friends, family members, people that feel like home. And as I would walk toward them in this big orchestra space, the music inside of me would get louder and more certain and more beautiful and more refined. And like my whole body could feel it. And it was like, yes, this is a yes as I'm moving toward this person. And anytime I need that reminder, this is a person that I can just be near and their energy can help my heart song get louder. And then these people that have been pruned from my life, or that for whatever reason I didn't have the closure, but they just weren't really it, I would start walking toward them with this excitement of like, they're going to hear this song. They're going to recognize this importance. And I would feel blocks and things shutting down and the music was getting quieter. And each step, it was painful because I wanted this person to really experience me in the way that this person next to them can. And it was so profound because it was like, sometimes people are brought into our lives to quiet our music so that we then have to make a painful decision to exit and move away and move closer to the people and the situations and experiences in our life that allows that essence, that heart song to play at its fullest capacity and keep being refined. And I think that everyone is the instrument in some way, and yours is such a literal sense, and it's the most beautiful expression of that, where you get to go out in the world and allow that to be the vessel and channeled through you. And me, without a whole lot of musical talent, and anyone listening that maybe doesn't feel like they're the instrument in a literal sense, has a very deliberate, intentional, important song that you were put on this earth to learn how to play and allow it to move through you. And I would just ask you if the people in your life are helping that song get louder and more certain and grow, or if it is in spaces that are keeping you small and like snuffing that sound out and stifling it. Because that analogy for me gave me so much peace in saying I can release this person or this situation because it did not let my song sing. It did not let it shine. And yeah, I just think that music is such a beautiful gift in that way. And your work is so full circle for that.
It's been my favorite journey. I've been on a lot of journeys. And it's been my favorite journey back to my heart and back to myself and back to my sovereignty. And that's, I think, the most important lesson that I've learned in the last couple of years is our sovereignty and our choice. And even, you know, to touch on what you were just saying, like I was on a walk with a couple of my girlfriends yesterday, and the way my heart felt afterward was so open and so connected and so loved and supported. And I think that's something that we should all continue to ask ourselves when we're with certain people. How do we feel? How is our body? How is our heart? How is our mind? And if you don't feel good around certain people, or like you say, like they're doling your light and they're doling your energy, it can be really, really hard. And that's been one of the hardest choices I've ever made, was to break away from certain individuals who just, I would be in their presence and I would feel snuffed out. And even though I loved them, sometimes we have to love people from afar. And that was one of the hardest lessons on this journey so far, is to choose myself and my light and my heart over choosing to be with people who can't support watching that light grow bigger and bigger. And I call my business Expand with Emily, because the word expand, I think, is so powerful. And I think it's so important that we continue to expand our heart and expand ourselves and our light in this world, and find the people that are around you that help you and help see you in a way that maybe you don't even see yourself. And continue to speak into existence. My girlfriends and I talk about all the time, when I'm big and traveling and I need a full-time stylist, my friend's going to be that for me.
Yep.
Or when I'm on like these big stages, and we just talk about it like it's already here. And I have people who do that for me. And now the stages are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And who knows where I will be in 5 years, but I'm just so grateful for the people in my life who see who I am and see my light. And even in my darkest moments, we're there to pull me back into the light.
And we just have enough reality in this world. Don't let your closest friend circle be the people that are like, okay, but like if that doesn't happen, you could do this practical thing instead. I feel like there's enough realism, and especially if you desire to be a bigger dreamer, surrounding yourself with those people that are like, can I be your stylist when you're famous and you're on those big stages? I mean, it's just, and it is so expansive. Just saying those things out loud and letting yourself have those thoughts, and not even do the if, but the when. You know, when I'm at a book signing and getting ready to speak in front of this big audience, because I just released my series, speaking those types of things into existence, it allows our subconscious to actually start experiencing those feelings, and then practicing sitting within those feelings. What's it going to feel like when you're backstage and getting ready to walk out onto this platform with 5 times the audience you're used to performing for? Those types of things are so important in our day-to-day, and in letting our body feel what that will feel like. And then how incredible that you stay aligned with your path, and then have that moment where you are standing there getting ready to do that and saying, holy cow, I've sat in this feeling 100 times before because I knew it was going to happen. And it's just the most important thing in the world, I think, to do that for others and allow others to do that for us, because the difference between the people that stand on those stages and the people that don't are just the people that are kind of crazy enough to think they can. And that's really it.
Legitimately, I know that I sound delusional to so many people, but the other dreamers in my life, I sound right on, like right on my purpose.
Yep.
And they're there to just like gas up my delusion, because I never thought that I would hold sound baths for 60, 70, 80 people. Never did I think that would happen, but I kept telling myself that, like, I'm going to do this.
Right.
I'm going to do this. And now it's happening.
And how crazy that, like you said, Emily 3 years ago would have laughed in your face. And the last 2 weeks, you've had more sound bath and events that you have performed at than I could even count or relay to you right now. And I know about all of them. And yet I'm like, wait, and then you had 17 in this garden. And then you had, it's just been so filled in a way that I think is so amazing, because everything we do in our life is energy, which is currency. And I think at the end of the day, if we really do look at everything as energetics, it's like everything has the capability to be easy. If we just allow that energy to flow into those areas where our attention goes, the energy is going to flow. What we focus on, we're going to find more of. So allowing ourselves to have the crazy ideas and say them out loud and gas each other up, and then rejoice when those things actually come true, because they totally will. I think that's the thing, is you look around and so many people are playing it so small. And then because of that, their lives, their environments, their circles are very small. But for me, I'm like, I want to keep being in rooms with people that are crazier than I am about their dreams and their goals. And it might give me the push to dream a little bigger, expand that a little bit more, believe I can actually do it, and be surrounded by people that know I can do it and speak to me and say over and over again, like, you're doing exactly what you're meant to be doing. And that feels so, so, so good when so much of our life is spent doing things out of alignment and doing things that we think we are supposed to do.
My life changed when I decided I was never going to do what other people wanted me to do, and I was just going to do what I wanted to do. And it's still a practice, but that changed everything because when you were talking about people who in your life who were like, but if this doesn't work out, here's your reality check. That's my father.
Yeah, we've all got enough of those.
I love him dearly, and he is very supportive of me, and he comes to my sound baths, and he's amazing, and I love him so much. But he's also still that like, well, maybe it's time to get a real job. And I'm like, okay, you're going to hold that one for yourself, and I'm going to be over here in Delulu land, and it's okay. And I appreciate that, but I don't need more of that in my life. I need exactly what you're saying, the people who are going to gas me up. And I just have to say, I'm going to be there when you have your book signing. I'm going to be right there in the crowd, freaking clapping so loud for you. And I'm going to be the first one to get your autograph on the book. So
thank you. I have to say our friendship has been such a surprise in such a good way. And I also want listeners to know that sometimes the biggest blessings come out of like the largest pile of shit that you could have ever imagined. And I will echo forever and ever and ever that when you create space in your life for really amazing things to come in, they will come in, but you have to first be brave enough to cut the ties that don't serve you, to clear away the things that were not meant to be in your path or are just no longer meant to be in your path. And while sometimes there can be a hesitation maybe if there's like a phoenix rising from the ashes and it's kind of scary and it's like, I don't know, this feels maybe overlapped with the situation I'm trying to remove from my life. The biggest thing I found in our friendship is exactly what you said earlier, and it's check in with yourself on how you feel when you're around someone and your energy and how you feel afterwards. And if you're able to set boundaries and feel like they're lovingly held. And, our pasts overlapped in a way that it connected us. And in order to get to where our friendship is today, we sort of had to like upheaval and unpack some of that past. And then very quickly, we both got to a place as deep connected friends in saying, revisiting our past is not serving us any longer. Let's make a commitment now to just build and ascend from here. And that boundary was immediately held by both of us. And so I think it's just really important to let good things come in when they try to come in, and maybe ask yourself if there are things you're doing to block good things from coming in out of fear, out of distrust from your past choices, whatever it may be, and learn to trust your intuition on if something feels good and feels right, give it a chance in your life.
Truly.
And be so surprised at how intentional the universe actually was in every single stepping stone to get you across the river, even though it felt at times like, what the fuck is happening? And then you're sitting there, having cacao with a good, dear friend, having these conversations about life and love and everything in between, when just a couple months ago, you would have never been able to imagine that being brought into your life.
It's so interesting because you're right. Like the universe just is always weaving its little magic. And did I ever think we would be here? No. And am I so grateful? I feel like I could cry. Absolutely. Because when I'm looking at my future and the way that I want to go and the direction I want to head, our paths are so divinely aligned. And I feel like we both have just these tremendous gifts that are able to build off of one another and support one another. And I think that as women, it isn't always cherished how beautiful female friendships are. just know, like, if you're listening and you're a woman and you're afraid to have female friendships, I could get married and divorced and I could go through however many men in my life. I hope I don't, but I could, knowing that I have women by me to come to my side and to aid me and to build me. And I'll always be so grateful.
Yeah.
Always be so grateful.
And it's way too easy to be pinned against one another rather than band together and be stronger together. And I'm so tired of that narrative. I'm so tired of the narrative that there's not enough light for us all to shine, or there's not enough seats at the table for all of us to exist. And that doesn't mean that every single woman has to have a seat at your closest table. But I think that when you can get out of your own way and realize there is such a strength in numbers and such a beautiful energy that happens when strong, fierce, independent yet interdependent females who recognize the importance of going fast alone, but going so much further when you're together, it's so unstoppable. And when I think about the most formative and pivotal moments in my entire life, the highest of highs and especially the lowest of lows, I look to either side of me and it is always my female friendships that show up. Unwavering. It is the prerequisite for even believing that there is such thing as a deep forever love that I could find with an intimate male partner, is because of the ferocity in which my female friends have loved me. And I think there's a huge empowering second side of the coin when you do realize that like, you hope that you don't get married and divorced 15 times and have these men in and out of your lives, but that you can release the control of thinking that you aren't loved unless you have an intimate love in your life, because you will never be alone again when you have those female friendships. And so then you can just navigate the world knowing that somebody's always got your back, and there's such a less of a pressure then placed on those intimate relationships because you are so held and so supported and so loved that the cup is running over, and anything else just adds to that. And if it doesn't, then bye. Like it's
also
remarkable.
you gotta kind of, if you want to date me, you got to make it through the gauntlet of my girls, because
1000%.
they are no longer here for men who aren't worthy of.
We aren't playing.
No, they're not. It's a gauntlet of girls,
Yes.
and I love them.
I do too. And thank goodness. I mean, being loved in such a way that you know somebody is going to say, you've got to get through me to get to her, is just the most safe, intimate space you could really be held in. And it's such a gift to be able to be loved by the women in our lives. And then it's such a gift to be brave enough to let new women in, because I do think that there's a lot of chatter around, pick me girls and I don't know, whatever, all the different trends that come through of like these different trad wives and whatever. And at the end of the day, I'm like, when you strip it all down, we are all women, some living in more of a wounded feminine energy, some living or striving to live in more of a healed feminine energy, but we need each other.
Absolutely.
And I think that letting new women in and being expanded by new women has been the difference in me staying stagnant and me ascending to heights I never could have imagined before. It's all women who have been the catalyst for unlocking my potential in every single aspect of my life.
Yes. And the safety it creates. And I think that at the end of the day, whether we're in friendships or in sound healing sessions, safety, 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 safety. Do I feel safe here? Do I feel safe in my body? Do I feel safe to express? Do I feel safe to be vulnerable? Safety is, and that's again, to go back to chakras, like that's the root chakra, safety. And you can't build anything on top of something that doesn't feel safe. It's like, even at the building, right? That foundation, safety.
Yeah. It's such a theme in my life in those check-ins, because again, we're inundated with so much information and do this, not that, and la, la, la. And for me, just pausing to ask if I feel safe, or even in entering into a situation or an interaction, checking in with myself and not just dissociating and being a people pleaser and turning it on in a way that, as you said, is almost more demanding versus commanding, because I don't think you can accurately and successfully command if you are not safe in your own body first. And so that for me is a big difference in just knowing the spaces I want to lean into, and then knowing the spaces or the people or experiences I would like instead to love from afar.
Mm-hmm.
Which again, it's all love, and it's I think sometimes when we create really resistive blocks around certain people or experiences, we damage ourselves even more than if we were allowing ourselves to just release them and like flutter them out into the distance and say, I don't want you in my orbit, but I wish you love and light and healing. And truly, I don't want to hold and harbor negative feelings. I mean, that's like drinking poison and being like, I hope this hurts you somehow. It's not going to. And so our friendship has also really been an echo of that for me, of just learning how to release like resentment and anger and negativity and actually look back and find so much gratitude, because even our friendship is a testament of that, that some of these painful experiences in both of our lives that were so divinely interwoven and allowed us to have a really deep understanding for one another without hardly saying a word, and just a knowing, like a really deep understanding of feelings and pain and loss, I think is universal and is what's allowed us to become really good friends. So without those things, we wouldn't probably be here or have the connectedness that we do.
Tell you what, I say it almost every single time anyone I know has experienced a heartbreak. Heartbreak is the biggest catalyst to growth, because you got to create space. You got to feel it. You got to move through it. And it sucks and it hurts. And oh, it's so beautiful. It is so, so, so beautiful. Like, when I have friends who are experiencing heartbreak, I, of course, want to hold them in their sadness. And I'm also over here just like,
popping champagne, being like,
yep.
yeah,
I'm like,
queen,
hell yeah,
here
girl.
we go.
Yep. Get ready,
Yep.
sister, because you're about to expand.
It's
Like,
so true. And you can really look at, and again, not in a salty way, but like maybe a tiny bit salty, you can look at experiences of relationships ending and you can see the person who was being held back who glows up afterwards, and you can see the person who was doing the holding back. And again, love and light and peace and harmony and all of the woo-woo things, but it's a pretty telltale sign when you see someone that's been released from the reins of a relationship that was restricting them, and the growth and the glow up and the ascension that occurs. It's pretty easy to see where someone's light was being dimmed when all of a sudden it is like 100 lumens, you know? And I think that to give yourself credit, and again, if you're listening and you're going through something hard, and we all are, like, I was asked by a business coach the other day kind of who my audience is, and I was like, all of us. Like, it is me, it is the person next to me, it is the woman in the grocery store, it is every single person, because my niche is transition. And at any given moment of any time of day, we're all going through a transition. Right now, it's the changing of the seasons, and allowing ourselves the grace and the beauty to be in the transition we are in with so much love and being held so safely and allowing it is what will then unlock and kind of catapult us into the next area, which then we will inevitably reach another transition. And so I think that recognizing, like, I am her, I am you, you are me, we are all so much more bonded and connected than we could ever imagine. And then some of the areas that feel disconnected are actually just a giant mirror in ways that we maybe are unhealed or we need to lean into a little bit more. And it's all so cyclical and connected. And I just think that experiences in our life, like our connection, end up really, really making that apparent to me. Like, there aren't coincidences. There is so much divinity interwoven, even in the moments of our life that feel so painful and so confusing. When we are strong and brave enough to pick ourselves up and dust ourselves off and move forward on the other side, there is so much clarity and so many aha moments, and then so much opportunity that, exactly as you said, it's like, I hate that your heart is hurting, and I cannot wait to see how big it grows when we put these pieces back together, because it's going to be unstoppable.
When the smoke clears, it's like, oh, that's why. That's why all of this, it's like a tower moment, right? In the tarot deck, it's like, fall apart, but then to rebuild on something so much more powerful and aligned. And it's hard to see it sometimes in that moment when you're just like, my world is falling apart and I can't even get out of bed today. I don't even know the last time I took a shower. Hi, I've been there within the last year. And then to pick yourself back up and to build and to find that, like, I love that you said that, I am her and she is me and we are all one. And to find your individual self in that, to bring your individual light and your individual magic into the world. Oh, it's powerful. It's powerful.
It's powerful. And it's the point. It's the point of everything. I think we spend so much time racking our brains and fighting so hard to get there. And we don't really know what there even is or what there even means. And, the example of like climbing to the top of the mountain to look out over the edge and then realizing after all is said and done, it wasn't the looking out over the edge of the top of the mountain. It was all of the steps it took to get us there. It was the people by our side. It was the company we kept. It's so often this rushed attempt to get to a destination. And then we look back on it, and the point of it all was the people we met along the way, the aspects of ourself that we discovered along the way, and sometimes giving ourselves grace in not trying to fight so hard to get there or to cross the finish line or to figure anything out. And instead, just let ourselves be where we are and let that be the most beautiful space to be in, because we aren't promised tomorrow and we aren't promised any of these outcomes or finish lines that we think are around the corner. In fact, so often life throws a wrench in it and there's like a huge pothole that we have to climb down into and then back out of, to then feel like we're so far behind all of our peers who were able to go around it and get to the finish line. And at the end of the day, it's like, I just think creating moments of connection in between, and then, as we've said repeatedly on this episode, connecting with self along the way helps us realize we're already there.
Yeah.
And like right here is where we're meant to be. And anything we can do to create presence and connection in this moment we have right now is the biggest gift we can give ourselves tomorrow or the next day. And even when we reach all of the goals, it's like the wedding blues after the wedding, like all the lead up, and then the wedding happens, and then the person is like, what now? Don't live a life where you're just so set on getting to the finish line that the rest of the days after are filled with what now?
I love that. And I think one of the things that I say to myself all the time when I'm like, oh, I want to be, making this amount of money in my business, and I'm like giving myself a hard time because I'm looking at people who are doing maybe something similar, who are like 10 years ahead of me. I stop myself and I say, no, this is my life's journey. And if I get to the finish line I'm 32 now, if I get to the finish line at 33, well, shit, what's the next, hopefully 60 years of my life
Right.
gonna look like? Like,
Yeah.
to have these, to want to rush and to rush and to rush, it doesn't take into account how much we need to integrate the lessons, integrate our nervous systems so that we can actually hold more space. And I think that's something that's very important in my work, is like allowing your nervous system to rest and then have more capacity to hold more. So like, even when I look at this last week, right? I remember a year ago, I was always like, I could never do 2 sound baths in a day. It's way too much energy. I just did like 7 in 3 days or something crazy like that. In like all different things. And I looked at myself yesterday and was like, whoa, my nervous system can hold so much more now. How proud I am of myself. What is the next 5 years going to look like?
Yeah.
And how excited I am to see what that journey looks like and where I go because of that. I don't want to have it all figured out right now because, first of all, my imagination is like this big compared to what God has in store for me, or universe, whatever word you want to use. That is the ultimate creator. And so I just get to kind of look back and You know, every sound bath, I always end with 3 collective ohms. And almost every single time, my intention is bring me into my highest alignment, bring me into my highest alignment. It's taking my hands off the reins and saying, okay, I trust that you can take me there, God, source, creator. You will find the most beautiful way there into my highest alignment. I simply get to listen with my body, trust my intuition, which I kept very small for so long. Now it's like, if something feels ick, you're all like, goodbye. If I feel it in my gut, bleh, okay. I've learned those hard lessons. I don't need to learn them again. So now it's, how do I feel? And I trust and I have faith.
And when you truly let go and allow that to be what's brought into your life, I love that you said that source, creator, God, the universe will find the most beautiful way there. And that does not mean it's going to be the easiest way. It does not mean it's going to be the least painful way. In fact, some of the lessons we have to learn are excruciating and are at times removing of every ounce of hope we may have had, only then to reveal to us a strength we did not know we were capable of, friendships and support we were not even capable of recognizing were as unwavering as they are when they show up in those moments. It's all for our greatest good and our highest self. And that doesn't mean in those moments we don't still have those begging, pleading, like, why is this happening? But I think that that deep trust and allowance of the path to be revealed to us does end up creating less suffering and less resistance, because we do start to be playful and curious with it and recognize that if something is kind of ripped from our lives without warning, it's only because it's creating space for something even more beautiful to be brought in. And if there's a really painful ending, it only means that a really beautiful beginning is around the corner. And if we lose little bits of ourselves along the way, it only means that we're going to be called by the whisper in our heart to come back home to ourselves and reintegrate that song into our lives that we've been playing within our being all along. I mean, I just think that we always say it, rejection is protection and redirection. Any of those things where doors feel like they're being closed, I've yet to experience a moment in my life where there weren't so many more doors, windows, and ceilings open to me after one closed door.
Yes. And I think there's a big distinction there between hope and faith, because faith is giving it away and saying, okay, I trust. Hope is like, oh, well, I hope this thing works. It's almost like a grab. And faith is in, okay, I let go. I trust. I fall back. I surrender. And in the darkest moments of my life, I put my hand on my heart and I just say, I trust and I have faith. And I might be sobbing and I might be curled up in a ball in my bed. It looks different, but every time I just put my hand on my heart, it's like, I have faith. It's going to be okay. Thank you for whatever this is.
Yeah. That's such a beautiful epiphany for me, because I think a lot of my life has been clinging to hope, and hope is so internally created, and it's really not on the basis of anything. Like you said, it's, I just really hope this works out. I hope this thing's around the corner. I hope this, I hope that. And so much of my recent loss and grief and upheaval I've experienced has actually forced me into a place of faith, because the hope was gone. There was no hope left. There was no hope to grasp onto. There was no hope to white knuckle. There was no hope in the corner of the bathroom floor. Instead, It's like, there's got to be something next. There's got to be a reason for this. There's got to be some type of rising from the ashes and something that is being interwoven behind the scenes. And there always is. And that's where faith is born for me, is the revealing of that and going, oh my gosh, my sweet little silly mind that was so hopeless 5 days ago and is now being revealed to all of the reasons why this thing was removed from my life. And I sat there and clawed with all my might, and now the faith is showing me, you just have to hold on a little looser
Mhm.
and kind of allow and let these things happen, because there is always something around the corner, and there's always such a deeper, greater, more beautiful reason than like our little hopeful minds can even come up with.
Well, I love the quote, and I have it on my on my fridge, and I read it almost every day. It's Ray Bradbury, and it says, first you jump off the cliff and you build your wings on the way down." And if that's not a testament to faith and what I feel like every big, beautiful thing that's come into my life has been,
Yeah.
like, okay, I'm going to just jump on off this cliff and okay, here we go.
I'm
Here's
gonna have
my
a handful of
free
feathers,
fall.
and I'm gonna just start sewing as I'm going down. I hope for the best here.
I hope they come.
Yeah.
Not even a hope. I just faith.
Yeah.
Have faith.
Yeah, for sure. And how much otherwise of life is kind of wasted just trying to like knit these wings on the side and never being brave enough to just take the leap, when most of the time when we take those leaps, we realize we could fly all along. Like we had what it took.
Well, it's the action. And I think that, you know, even in building this practice that I have, and it's always just been one of my coaches that I worked with years ago, messy aligned action. Messy aligned action. It doesn't have to be perfect. And I always had this intrinsic need to make everything perfect. Even when I'd write essays and stuff in college, I would be like analysis paralysis because I wanted it to be so perfect on my first try. And I mean, A, that's just, it's not even real. And B, you're never going to get somewhere if you're going to just continue to hold yourself back. Right. And sometimes, you know, my friends will reflect back to me. They're like, yeah, Emily, you're the person who actually just like does things. You know, you're not the one who's like, I want to move to another country, and then you never do it. They're like, no, you just like pack
You're
your
like,
bags.
hey guys, I'm in Nicaragua.
Yeah. And they're like,
Moved here
whoa,
yesterday.
what are you doing? And I'm like, I don't know, but I have faith it'll work
Right.
out. And it does. And it's just like, you just have to take it. Take that messy aligned action, whatever that looks like in your life, because it's going to be different for everybody, because everybody's life experience is different and everybody's journey is different and everybody's magic is different. But the messy aligned action, not perfection. That's not what we're seeking here. We're seeking to just move the needle a little bit. And then all of a sudden you look back and you've sewn this beautiful masterpiece of life because you kept moving that needle.
Yeah. It's so, so, so true. And just the building your wings on the way down. Don't hold yourself back. Like, let yourself do the things. And there's so much self-discovery and growth and so many lessons that don't happen until you jump off the cliff or kind of take that leap or do the hard thing. And then it isn't going to be perfect. It is always going to be messy when you're willing to kind of take those risks. But otherwise, you don't have any of the opportunity to kind of figure it out and refine it and often figure out what the purpose of jumping off the cliff was in the first place as you're on your way down. And it's not usually the reason you thought it was when you first jumped.
Most of the time, never is.
So true. Well, before we close this conversation, I know we have a beautiful sound offering that we are going to give to listeners. So stay tuned if you would like to experience some of Emily's incredible sound healing. And also, spoiler alert, stay tuned because there will be some membership offerings coming from Emily as well, which I'm so excited for. But I would love to hear what your personal version of Red Nail Energy looks like.
Okay, I love this question. And I sat with this question for a little bit because I was like, well, what is it? What is it? What is it? And it was so simple to me. And it was just my breath. And every time I do anything hard in my life, whether I get up on a stage and sing in front of people, whether that's sound healing or literally like on a stage, because I've done a lot of stage performances, or even this, right? I take a breath. Usually I touch my heart too, because that's my like grounding. And I just, and I can take that everywhere. I can take it on a plane, a train, an automobile. I can take it everywhere. And there's so much power in just that simple inhale and exhale. And then I'm back in my body and I'm back in my power. And even then I feel my voice come back down to its power center. So that for me would be my Red Nail Energy. My
I love
breath.
it. And it's something you have with you no matter what you're wearing, what color your nails are not painted, what mood you're in, what environment you're in, and is a gift that keeps on giving, because when you embody that, when you take that true deep heart-centered breath and exhale, it commands the room. It allows that energy to infiltrate and be felt by so many people, and it is truly a gift that we all have the capacity to access, but the vessels and the spaces that you create open that up so it's right there for everyone to just take that deep breath with you and go inward and be willing to connect with themselves by witnessing you connect with yourself. And so I love it. Even your deep breath just now was felt by me, I'm sure felt by listeners, and is such a good reminder that it's something we always have with us and can always access to kind of come home to ourselves in the highs, the lows, the anxious moments, anything. We've always got our breath. So if we don't, call 911. But you, you should always have that with you. I really love that. And then before we have the sound offering, is there anything else kind of intuitive on your heart that you feel listeners need to hear? And then how can listeners connect with you? I will make sure to link all of this in the show notes as well.
Yeah, I just think it all comes back to, again, sovereignty and power and knowing that you can be your own healer. And that, I think, is my favorite thing to remind people is, first of all, if you're in a space and anyone claims to be able to heal you, probably run in the other direction, especially in the spiritual space. Run and keep running, because the true healing comes from going inside, going into your heart, going into the self and turning your eyes inward. Like that is where healing occurs. And so you always have that. You always have that power within yourself to be your own healer, to make your own choices, and to really own your sovereignty in the world, own your energy, and own your light and your magic.
I love that. Stay tuned, listeners. You are so loved and seen, and hold on tight because we have a really beautiful sound offering at the end of this episode. Make sure you are in a safe space to really take in all of the beautiful healing frequencies that Emily is about to offer. And also stay tuned because this is far from the last time you are going to see, experience, and witness Emily in the Red Nettle Energy community.
Can't wait.